I'm going to bring the meeting to order, and Michelle Schneier is going to give us the invocation and the pledge.
Dear Lord, please bless everyone here today. Help us to make the right decisions for the community, and please protect all of ECUA's employees in their daily jobs. In your holy name we pray, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. We move now to the adoption of the agenda. Does anyone have additions or comments?
I do. I'd like to
Yes,
add.
ma'am. Sorry, I couldn't see you. That's okay. Go ahead, Ms. Ritt.
Okay. I'd like to add a comment for the 2018 annual report to new business.
2018 annual report on new business. Does anybody else have anything? I'm going to add the hosting of the 2020 LEAP group onto new business. LEAP, it's Leadership Pensacola. And if nothing further, can I get a motion?
I motion.
Thank you. Second. Thank you. Please vote. And it passes 8-0. We move now to open forum. I do not have any pink slips. Okay, so we move to approval of the minutes from the June 18th, 2019 CAC meeting on page 5. Do I have a motion?
Move approval.
Thank you, Ms. Ben. And Ms. Booker?
Second.
Thank you. Please vote. And it passes 8-0. We move now to item F, which is the purchase of Thiogard magnesium hydroxide slurry, sole source on page 12. Do I have a motion? Or do I need to turn this to Mr. Sorrell?
Move approval.
Thank you. Mr. Perkins moves approval.
Second.
Thank you. Any comments? If not, please vote. And for the audience, this is a sole source supply agreement. And it passes 8-0. We move now to item G, which is a developer payment of future relocation and improvements for the Kahili Ridge subdivision, ECUA System Extension Project number 2017-22 on page 14. And Mr. Sorrell, will you walk us through this?
Yes, ma'am. There's been a tremendous amount of development taking place out in the Beulah Road area with a lot of different subdivisions. This particular subdivision is one where it's probably going to be impacted by the construction of the interchange and the improvement of Beulah Road in the immediate area where we're going to do this work. So Stacy Hayden, our Director of Engineering, has been meeting with the developer, and he's worked out something that I think will work for both of us. It'll allow the developer to go ahead, but it allows him to pay us for the development improvements that are necessary, and we'll just hold that money until such time that the road improvements are made by the county. And Stacy, would you like to add to that, please?
Good afternoon. I think Mr. Sorrell summed it up nicely. This project planned on by the county and DOT is going to take place from Highway 90, 9 Mile Road, south on Beulah Road. There's going to be extensive utility relocation, and rather than us have the developer, replace a section of the force main and then us relocate it later, we just simply take that money, put it to good use later, and we're not having to double dip and do double work on the roadway. So pretty straightforward.
Thank you. Ms. Benson,
Move the recommendation, and I have a comment to make.
okay. Do I have a second to get it on the, Ms. Schneier?
I
Thank-
second.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Benson?
First of all, this is great. I've never been shy about expressing my feelings about urban sprawl and that we ought to be working in Myrtle Grove and Navy Point instead of out here, but it makes absolutely no sense to do a project that's going to have to be undone in 2 years. And thank you for your vision in putting this on our agenda so that, the developers should not expend money that they're going to have to redo or we're going to have to redo. So this is good fiscal policy.
Thank you. Mr. Perkins?
These type of agreements and stuff, I'm sure our attorney will handle. Have we, as the new attorney, come on board? Have we signed them up, agreed to terms and everything like that, working for us now?
Well, actually, almost. And if Rob will stand up in the back, he's here. I asked him to come if he wanted to, just to see what we do. I asked him to sit by me, he wouldn't do it. So I don't know what that means. I did take a bath, but basically, yes, we have reached agreement with Mr. Beasley, and it'll be on the board agenda next week for your final authorization, but it's all done. Rob's agreed to it, and we've had Russell Van Sickle look at it, and I've looked at it, so I think there's been enough eyes on it. I think we're good.
Thank you. I saw another light. Did it
It was mine.
go off? Ms.
It's
Benton?
mine. Thank you. And do you foresee or do you know of other areas where this could be coming in the near future, where this could also be utilized? How many of these areas are we looking at, do you think, where this tie could overlap?
We get so many of these type of utility relocations and such. We're constantly looking at ways to do this kind of, cost sharing, or I wouldn't say cost sharing, but this type of scenario.
We do it with oversizing.
We do it with oversizing. That's where if a developer comes in and needs only a 4-inch, but hey, ECUA needs a 6-inch to extend service beyond, we do some cost sharing there. But we're constantly getting utility relocation requests from the DOT, county, and city, and we're constantly getting developer applications, and we want to merge the two, and this is just our way of looking at that and making sure we're not, having to relocate something that just went in for development. So I can't to answer your question, I'm sorry, I can't put an exact number on that. We just deal with them as they come in. So.
Okay, thank you. It's very forward-looking, good planning. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ritz?
Yes, thank you. What factors did you use to generate this estimated cost that they will pay?
We maintain a database or a list of construction projects of construction costs, and we use the low, medium, and high estimates to derive at this cost estimation. And we coordinate with a developer and show them that, hey, we're not ripping you off. This is a legitimate cost, and that's what we use.
Thank you, Ms. Ritz. Mr. Sorrell?
Yes, ma'am. I just want to tell you, as part of this particular development, really any development that's coming down the pike, there will be what's called a utility service agreement. Basically, that gives the developer the permit from us to do the work, and that is not issued or signed until such time that we get the USA all prepared, and it'll include all these this wording for this amount of money if it's approved by the board. So that's always done. You're going to see more of these, I think, because we're getting a lot of development out in the Detroit, 9 Mile Road, Beulah Road, Frank Reeder Road. We're seeing a lot of development there, probably double what we used to see. So the development has taken place. So we're trying to work with every one of them, and we're trying to upgrade our infrastructure as we go. So it's a process that's underway, and it's a work in progress. And he's done just a great job of working with this. So you're going to see more and more of these, ma'am.
Thank you. Ms. Ritz?
One more question is, I listened to Mr. Sorrell. How will this impact the central wastewater plant? In other words, the new homes that will go online.
This flow will actually go to a different plant, to the Bayou Marcus plant. So this project will not have an impact to the central plant. It'll have a very minor impact to the Bayou Marcus plant. I cannot remember the exact total of homes being connected, but it's a drop in the bucket, so to speak, for that plant. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. I would also like to commend Stacy. I mean, this area, it's kind of a catch-22. We wanted jobs for our children, so we got jobs, and now we have to have some homes for people, you know, affordable homes, and it's really, it's kind of a fine line that we have to walk with the developers. And Stacy, you're doing such a great job with this kind of forward thinking. I know we're working on an easement on another one together, and I just appreciate all the time that you spend. I know how much time you spend during the day and after hours on these things, and we appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am.
If nothing further, please vote. And it passes 8-0. We move now to item H, which is award of purchase for a yard trash collection truck prototype, and I see Mr. Rudd has made his way to the podium to speak with us.
Yes, ma'am. We've been working on this for quite a while, and we're excited to bring this to the board. We hope it will solve a lot of problems we have with yard trash collection, which is traditionally one of the problem areas that we have. It also leads to a lot of employee injuries and turnover. So actually, I've been trying to get a company to build this truck for 10 years. Finally, we're working with the company that's now providing our solid waste collection trucks, and they are interested in building this prototype for us. I've got a short video here to show those who aren't familiar with how we collect yard trash, how it operates now, and then a video of the truck that is similar to what we would be purchasing, that I went and visited the factory that's building our current order of trucks and saw this truck in Canada that they're using for a little bit different purpose, but it's the closest thing out there right now to the truck that we're talking about buying. So I'll go ahead and show this video and stop it a couple times and give some comments.
That's the one on my road.
A second ago, those gentlemen you saw loading the yard trash in the back of the truck. Right now, to pick up most yard trash, we utilize during the heaviest part of the year, which is from March through September, 20 of those rear loading type trucks with 3 men on each truck, and they load by hand up to 20 tons per day of yard trash. You can easily see where the injuries come from. We have back injuries, knee injuries, you name it. People getting poked in the eye with sticks, so forth. That is where brand new drivers go, and you can imagine loading 20 tons of yard trash a day in the middle of August. It is a brutal job. Our other vehicle that you see right now is the knuckle boom truck. That we use for bigger piles of yard trash, piles that have materials that are too heavy for the men to pick up by hand. So that's what we use for those. The disadvantage of this truck is while it does the heavy lifting, there's no compaction. That is just a simple dump body. If you load that truck completely, you might get 3.5 tons. So you can see if we were to load exclusively on those trucks, that truck would have to make 7 trips a day to the landfill. We would never get the routes finished. The advantage to the rear loading trucks are that they have compaction, but you have to load everything by hand. They can hold 7 to 10 tons of yard trash per load, so it cuts down on the number of trips they have to make to dump, but the downside is you can only load them by hand. What you're gonna see next is the closest thing that we have to this prototype that we want to buy. Now, obviously, he's not picking up yard trash. He's picking up what they use as a replacement for normal dumpsters like you would see at a restaurant or in a multifamily complex, condominium, something of that sort. We are actually looking at these to use on Pensacola Beach in highly visible areas in place of dumpsters. The other advantage of this system is that it's all plastic, so on Pensacola Beach, we may put a brand new dumpster out there and it may last a year, year and a half because of the salt air. These systems right here are all plastic. They would not rust out. They're much quieter than a dumpster. You don't hear the metal banging around when the truck dumps it. But what's important for you, the yard trash application, is that arm that's using that to pick it up. Basically what this company is going to do is install a grapple on the end of that arm that would be used to pick up the piles of yard trash and then load them into the truck. That truck, other than the arm, is the exact same truck we use right now for garbage collection. We have 10 of them on order right now. It's just simply adding that arm and that grapple. We're also adding controls in the cab where the driver would be able to operate that arm without getting out of the truck. He would have the option of getting out of the truck and use a remote control to control the arm for areas where the yard trash pile may be under wires or is very close to obstacles, so you could have better vision of loading the pile. Like I said, right now we use 20 rear loaders with 3 men per truck. If this truck works the way we expect it to, we would be able to run 20 trucks, but only 1 man per truck. So we would reduce our labor from 60 laborers to 20 per day to collect yard trash, eliminate a lot of injuries. About 40 of those employees are day laborers. They're not ECUA employees. We use those day laborers to load the material in the back of the trucks. It's getting difficult to find those laborers. They don't even want to come do this kind of work. There's only one company in town that will provide them, and if they change their policy, we wouldn't have that available to us. It is a high liability job, and that's why there's limited people that want to do that. When the driver's not demonstrating how this works, he can load one of these containers in about 3 minutes. So it is a very quick process. This truck would basically have multi-functions. Not only would it pick up yard trash, it can dump 90-gallon cans for recycling and or garbage, and it can also pick up bulk waste, in addition to these containers right here in place of dumpsters. So it is a multi-function truck, very similar to what we're running now, and we think it has a lot of applications in our operation. That's basically what I wanted to show you. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Perkins?
So the 10 trucks that we're buying, could they be modified with this, or will we be looking at new trucks?
No, these would be new trucks,
So not the 10 that we're buying?
not the
it'd be
10
just
we're
total.
buying. They don't have the wheelbase. They weren't designed for this.
Yeah, okay.
What we would like to do is this truck would actually be included in the purchase for FY 2020 as one of the 10 trucks that we're planning to lease. We want to see if we can get this delivered, if the board approves it this month, by November. That would give us the winter to get a driver trained and proficient on it, work out any bugs we have, try it during the beginning of the heavy yard trash season, see how it performs, and then come back to the board next year's budget, 2021, with a recommendation on whether we go forward with purchasing these trucks or not.
Is there a possibility that you could, while you reduce manpower, you could also save on routes because you're making less trip? Was there a possibility in the long run you could end up needing less trucks?
That,
'Cause you're,
yes, that's a distinct possibility. We won't know until we put it on the route and see how efficient it is.
Now, I noticed the ones you talked about, rather than dumpsters at the beach, which should be nice because they do rust out real bad, but the water table would impact those types. I mean, as far down.
We
as
can
they
deal
would-
with that, yeah. There's actually a plastic tube that gets inserted in the ground that keeps the groundwater out of it once you have it installed. So we are going to, if the board approves the purchase, we are gonna talk to the SRIA about trying some of the high visibility spots on the beach and see how they work out.
Ms. Schneier?
To me, it's similar to the knuckle boom truck, and I've seen drivers use that knuckle boom to compact the yard debris as much as they can, the weight of it in there. But then afterwards, I was really impressed with, the driver got out and swept up the road and made sure that there was no debris left after he got as much as he could with that knuckle boom. Would it be the same thing? Would they still have to get out and sweep the road? I mean, what is the actual difference other than the compaction in this truck and the knuckle boom truck?
That is the major difference, the compaction ability. Now, they can take the knuckle boom and try to compact it, but what happens a lot of times, it just springs right back.
It wasn't efficient,
Right,
and I get that.
exactly.
But he got out and he swept it up because, of course, that knuckle boom didn't pick up all the smaller debris and everything. So would they still have to get out and sweep it up?
Right now, the rear loaders do not do that. We would not finish the route if they had to sweep up behind every pile. You know, you're always gonna have some leaves and all that. A lot of times the knuckle boom, particularly if they're picking up building debris or something like that, they will get out and do that. And yes, ma'am, that would continue.
I was impressed with the driver when he did that, though, when I saw him do that. He was the only one that I've seen do it,
Yes, ma'am.
so it was good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Benson?
First of all, this is going to eliminate half of the calls that I get. This is just amazing. You'll never hear from me again if we implement this. What an innovative thing. Right, in the picture, you had a driver who was there, or a man who was there, obviously for demonstration purposes. Would our driver not need to get out most of the time?
We are adding, in the prototype, there will be controls within the cab where he will not have to get out at every stop.
That's amazing. So it's going to be more efficient in so many ways. Has anybody done this before?
No, ma'am, we will have the first truck of this
So,
type.
you know, as we do budget, I think about the University of Florida and Gatorade and how much that funds the university. I mean, can we get a patent on this? And
I've already had that discussion with the manufacturer because, like I said, I've been trying to get someone to build this truck for 10 years.
Brilliant.
So, yes, ma'am.
So, and you've had that discussion, and
We need to have more discussions. I'll leave it at that.
I mean, I truthfully, we do need to protect. I'm glad Robert is here because we have an interest in this. Obviously, if we invent something that saves every trash company in this country, we ought to have the benefit of what you've done.
Well, and that is also part of the discussion is, you know, any company's reluctant to build one of anything.
Right.
That's why the cost of this truck is significantly higher than a normal truck. They're got all their engineering costs in this truck. But I've told them that if this performs as expected, they will sell a lot of these trucks, not just in Florida, but the entire Southeast. Other parts of the country, they use a lot of places that have a third 90-gallon cart for yard trash. The problem that doesn't work in the Southeast because we generate so much yard trash. We have a year-round growing season.
Right.
One 90-gallon can will not meet everyone's yard trash needs. Now, that is an option we can offer to people if the board elects to move forward, because that truck will dump a regular 90-gallon can. We could go with a third can for those people that would just like that rather than bagging their material or using their own cans. That would be an option we could look at as well.
That was, interestingly, if I may continue, so I was at a town hall just this past week, and somebody came up to me and told me, well, where I came from, you get a lot of that, we had a third can, why don't we do that? And I think you've answered that question, but it may be an option for some people, and again, it's a little bit tidier than that. Just an editorial comment. Obviously, this is wonderful. 15 years ago, I think, Rick Harper spoke to my Rotary and on the economy and what was happening, and he said that our economy is changing so remarkably because of technology, and entry-level jobs are going to disappear. And everybody will either have a highly skilled job, or there will be jobs for waiters and a few of those service, hairdressers and all that. It's interesting to see where we are going, and while this is a huge benefit to us, I sort of think about the ripples in society as everybody does their piece of what we're doing. Just an editorial comment, not good or bad, just an observation. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ritz?
As I was looking at the film, I wondered how they put the debris into that large circular structure.
There's actually a lid on the top of it that the
There's a-
customers can open and then
Okay.
drop their bags into it. Yes, ma'am.
And the other thing, when you look at the sun damage that can occur to plastics, has that been figured into this system?
Yes, ma'am. They use the same type plastic that goes into the 90-gallon containers. There's a polymer that they use that's resistant to cracking in the sunlight, and that's what was used in these containers as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Schneier?
I just want to say, as far as safety goes, we need to look out and ensure that the jobs are safe and efficient, and we need to strive for 0 injuries so we can get more awards on the wall. But I think it's a great idea. I love it, as far as the safety aspect.
Thank you. Ms. Ben? Sorry, skipped you.
Oh, no, that's fine. Anyway, I appreciate you being proactive and always looking ahead and trying to find solutions to be more efficient and cost-effective and save our ratepayers money and keep the costs down. And it does seem like this could have a net cost reduction and actually move the process along more quickly.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think that's a great idea. And I did have a question about, on page 20, about allow the policy to change requiring small yard trash such as grass clippings and leaves to be bagged or containerized.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. Right now, we require those small items to be bagged or containerized because with loading in the rear loaders, if we allowed customers to put them out loose at the curb, which the city does because they use knuckle booms for collection, if we did that, those drivers or employees would have to load that with a shovel or a rake into the back of the truck. That would just take so much time, they would not finish the routes. That's why we've always required that. If we go to collection with a knuckle boom, we could allow customers to just pile it at the curb the same way they do in the city, and the knuckle boom would pick it up. So that's another advantage. eventually we could even go to the point of saying we will no longer collect yard trash in plastic bags, which would help the compost system, because the plastic bags are a big problem for that system. And if we don't require them to bag it, they could just put it at the curb loose and pick it up with a knuckle boom.
Thank you.
Thank you. Did you want
He answered it.
to? Oh, okay. Ms. Ritz?
I don't mean to be a devil's advocate all the time, but I'm thinking of my personal yard, and we have quite a few magnolia trees, and they love to shed at certain times of the year. And I'm concerned that if I had to depend on the knuckle to pick up what I call a pile of magnolia leaves, that they would not still be in their pile when the truck came back by. So I just wondered how that's going to be accounted for, with piles of
I
leaves
mean-
that are very large.
Yeah, I mean, you could continue to put them in paper bags or containers.
I put them in containers now, yeah.
Yeah, the truck would have the ability, we could continue to dump manual cans if needed.
Good, that's good, good to hear.
Thank you. Kevin Hammer?
This made me think of something. So correct me if I'm wrong, the grapple truck that's only used when people call because they have large items, right? So it's not used as frequent as the back end.
Correct. It's used for when people have piles that exceed the normal collection level and they want to pay for an extra pickup. Or if we get to a pile that may be within the normal collection level, but it has a lot of logs or heavy bags, and we don't want to take a chance on injuring an employee, so then we'll go ahead and use the knuckle boom to
Right.
pick those up.
So, I mean, it's not used as often as the other trucks. My concern would be, it's not, really not an ECUA problem, but how much damage would then occur on the street because now we're using a knuckle boom all the time instead of sporadically? You know what I'm saying? Like tearing up a curb or...
Yeah, once we, get the drivers trained, they're pretty proficient at these knuckle booms.
Okay.
And I'm not gonna say it doesn't happen, it does, even, with the knuckle booms we use now. But it is a driver function once they get used to that. We're actually putting some camera systems on this prototype to help the drivers judge when they're picking things up, and so they don't scrape up the grass or hit other items. We've even discussed putting a camera on the boom itself so that the driver will be able to see straight down and tell what they're grabbing. So we're doing everything we can technology-wise to eliminate those problems.
Thank you. Thank you, Randy. Kudos on the forward thinking. I knew this was coming, and I would just ask if we do Pensacola Beach, if we could also do Perdido Key.
The difference is we service everything on Pensacola Beach. We don't do that on Perdido Key.
Well, I'm
We
just
could-
talking about the access areas.
Yeah.
So could we not work with the county?
We do not service those. Those are under county contract. So we could definitely try it at the locations we service on Perdido Key.
Okay. And would this be an option for some of the condos?
Yes.
That want to recycle?
Yes.
I think so too. They don't want to take up parking places, is what I've been told out on Perdido. They don't want to take up a parking space for a dumpster, but if we could put it in the ground, I think this would be a solution for a lot of those condos.
Yes,
So,
that's definitely an advantage of this system because of the reach of the boom. You don't have to put it in a parking space where a normal front-load truck would need to get to it. You can put it on a landscape median, off the pavement, and because of the reach of the truck, it can still service that container.
Thank you. So you'd be willing to go to the Condo Association Institute and speak to
Oh,
these
yeah.
people about it, right? Thank you, Randy. Hey, also, on the note of where Ms. Benson was going, could we allow advertising on these to pay for any portion of it?
It's possible. We'd have to look at it legally and see
Okay.
if we can do that or not.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Perkins? Oh, thank you. Do I have a motion?
Yeah. How long, so we're gonna, it's a prototype and we're gonna try it out, so how long are we gonna beta test it for? Because I know with all those hydraulics and everything, there may be maintenance issues that we don't currently experience.
Yeah, like I said, we want to run it from November through, April, May of next year, and then bring it to the board back in October, for the 2021 budget. So we test it for about a year.
Good question. Mr. Hammer?
I see the cost for the new truck, but what I don't see is what is that cost to basically lease that prototype for that 10 months, 8 months?
Well, we would be we do a lease purchase. That will be part of the 10 trucks that we lease purchase in October or November. And it would basically just be another truck that we purchase. The truck can be used for normal garbage collection or recycling collection. So if we decide that, the yard trash use isn't appropriate, we could still continue to use the truck for other uses.
Ms. Schneider?
Can it pick up things like refrigerators and water heaters and stuff that people throw away and discard, bicycles, just whatever?
We wouldn't use it for scrap metal, but couches, chairs, all those other kind of things, yes, that truck can pick it up.
Thank you. Great questions. The CAC always asks the best questions. Do I have a motion? Ms. Ritz?
I so move the recommendation.
Second.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Ms. Ben. Ms. Ritz and Ms. Ben. No more questions? Comments? Please vote. And again, good job, Randy. That was. I know the reason we started looking at this was because we wanted to do something on the beaches, and we were worried about them, how the weather was going to affect it. And it passes 8-0. Led us down a beautiful path. We move now to informational reports on pages 21 and 22. Do I have any questions on the informational?
Ma'am, you skipped page, no, I'm sorry, I would say 24, but you haven't gotten there yet, I'm
No,
sorry.
I haven't gotten there yet. Informational reports? If not, we move to unfinished business, security deposits for other than single-family residential customers on page 23. Mr. Sorrell.
Yes, ma'am, this was brought up a number of months ago, and we finally got it on the agenda. Certain individuals asked to have the security deposit returned because he is a person that pays all of his bills on time and so on. I think the same exact person asked for it a year or so ago, and it was presented to the Citizen Advisory Committee and the board at that time. What you see in front of you is essentially what the board and what the committee considered at that time, looked at all the alternatives, and it's all explained in here, and basically they decided not to go ahead with this, but simply because they believe, or we believe, that it'll cost the ECUA money in the long term. First off, there's some revenues derived from the investment of the money. Secondly, if a business happens to go out of business after any amount of time, we would be stuck with having to not be able to collect for their utility bill. So the committee and the board have decided not to do this in the past simply for those reasons, because they just didn't think the other ratepayers should have to pay for this. So it's all explained here. Gabe Brown's here, and he'd be glad to address this. And I think he's adamantly opposed to changing the security policy that we've been using for, I don't know, 20 or 30 years, however amount of time it is, longer than I've been here.
Thank you. Ms. Benson.
Well, I like the idea. I don't ever like to go against Mr. Brown, but I think that this makes absolute sense. Let me ask a couple of questions. So right now, we refund security deposits to individuals after, 24 months, if they have good credit. But, so if, let's say an insurance office with 2 employees, 3 employees, has an account, we keep their security deposit?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Or you're a title company, and you have a handful of employees, none of them take a bath or a shower, they use a minimal, we keep their security deposit.
Right, but keep in mind, their deposits or the
Right.
very minimum. You're talking $86.
Well, still, it's $6, right?
And also, with these smaller businesses, we've seen that when the business fail, you can have 3 months of bills, and that deposit doesn't even cover those 3 months of bills, but we do get the majority of it.
Well, and I think, and I hear you, but, you know, our record is pretty good for collecting debts.
Right, and this is the reason with the deposits and the final bills, because it's customer service that we do all the research for it, and to keep our debt down, this is definitely a safety net for us. Working here 25 years, I've seen a lot of debt that we could have collected if we had the proper deposits on file.
Well, and of course, we expect that of you, so
Right.
it would be terrible if we didn't give you the tools to do it. But part of me sees this as sort of a tax on small businesses, most of whom pay their bills. I mean, we have a lot of small businesses that employ a lot of people in this community. And yes, $6 isn't that much, or $20, but it does add up if you're running a small business, meeting payroll, and that sort of thing. And I think, you know, some of the proposals that suggested you wait 60 months, which is 5 years, and if they have a great credit history, then you do it. I'm not just, everybody who applies for a business license gets a buy, but I think it is customer friendly. It, you know, for some people, there is a huge chunk of money that is out of service. They're not making interest on it. They can't use it to help, you know, meet payroll or invest in new trucks or whatever it is. And I think it was a very reasonable request. We absolutely have to protect our customers against bad debts and all of that, but I think 60 months is a pretty reasonable litmus test for that. So I would like to see us do it on some sort of a trial basis, just in being a kinder, friendlier utility.
Thank you, Ms. Benson. Ms. Schneier?
Are we allowed, or do we keep security deposits in an escrow account or any type of account that accrues interest?
They are not kept in an escrow account per our, per Patty. I asked that question first, and they are kept in restricted, which means we can't use them to, they're in the
interest.
restricted reserve, so.
But there is a small amount of interest on it annually.
Is it interest on the lump? On the whole
Interest
lump
on
sum?
the amount that we're
in there.
holding for that deposit, yes, on that amount.
And how is that interest money used?
I have to get Patty to answer that.
The money goes into just our general checking account, and for financial statement purposes, we do restrict the customer deposits, so we're not allowed to use that for something else. But it's all in the same bank account. We just account for it as a customer deposit. It's a liability on the balance sheet, because it can eventually go back to the customer,
Thank you.
those family residentials. But also the commercials are kept in that restricted cash.
Thank you, Patty. Mr. Hammer?
Now, we're talking businesses only on this thing, right? So this kind of hits home for me as a business owner, so I don't know where to start. So I think it's a great idea giving a refund, and here's the reason. My opinion is I'm already got to pay extra because I'm a business. I'm getting charged extra for my electricity by residents, correct me if I'm wrong, right? My kilowatts are higher. I get charged higher for my water, I mean, everything. So I just think it's a good give back to a business, you know, you get what I'm saying? And as a business owner, I'm like, why am I getting charged more for my business for the same water, electricity, all that as I am in my house?
Right, we don't charge you more for your water. Your water is based on a rate.
It may not be
And
the
it's-
water,
it's
but I
your-
know for a
your
fact on
usage.
electricity and all that. I
Right,
do pay
your
higher
water
rate.
and sewer is based on the same rate as our residential customers. The difference would be your minimum charge, and that would be for your meter size.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hammer. Do I have any further comments? Well, since I brought this up, I'm going to say, I'm going to agree with Ms. Benson and Mr. Hammer on this. I'm a business owner, and I don't think that it's fair for you to make money on my money. I think I should be the one making money on my money. And if it's 5 years, I mean, that's pretty much a testament to they're going to be in business, you know. I mean, 5 years, you know, I mean, a law firm's in business for 5 years, or a restaurant's in business for 5 years, or a title company you used. I like that aspect. You know, pays for 5 years, and then, you know, if I pay well, then I think it's nice that we would reward. I would like to see us do it on a trial basis, and if I mean, here's the deal. We set policy on this board, and the CAC helps us to look at these matters. If we do it, and it doesn't work, we can always go back. But I agree with Ms. Benson and Mr. Hammer that it would be a nice thing for us to try, and if it doesn't work, we can always go back, and I think Patty and Gabe will keep us abreast every year of how it works out. I'm sure they will. So that's my thoughts. I'm sorry, Ms. Ben.
Thank you. My question is, would it be an automatic refund, or would someone have to know about the
It'll be
policy
generated
change?
by
Or
our
would-
system. Once they
would
reach
be-
the 24 months, they have no negative impacts from late payments or anything like that on their account. Once the 24 months or the 60 months, it'll automatically
It's not.
generated in the system and
And
applied
this-
towards their account.
And in this case, we're talking about a 60-month arrangement.
Yeah,
Right.
Is that correct?
that's what I
For
thought.
commercial accounts? Okay.
Also, with
20
commercial accounts, multifamily is a commercial account. So you're looking at 2 units, 3 units, rentals also falling under this policy as well. And that is the main thing that was my concern. That could hurt us.
Ms. Benson.
Madam Chairman, I think before we send this to the board as a policy, if the votes are there, I'd like to refer it to staff for a couple of reasons. One is, maybe our attorney can research the impact on our bonds and how that would relate. I'd like Ms. Shelton to kind of tell us how much we're talking about and what the
Right.
impact would be, and perhaps even to look at a separate category for multifamily. I think if we are going to do this, let's look very carefully at the various implications. I would like to see us do it, but I don't want to just jump blindly because we think it's a good idea. I'd like for staff to vet it. So that's a motion to refer.
Thank you, Ms. Benson. Mr. Perkins. Oh,
Yeah, I'll second it.
okay.
I'd also like us to look into like what Gulf Power does and what some other utilities in the city of Pensacola, and see if they do it, and if they do it successfully. To me, you know, it kind of makes sense. I mean, we can't use the money for anything anyways, and I'm not sure how much interest we're getting on it. I would suspect it's not a whole lot. I mean, it could be, but I would suspect it's not going to put a hole in the budget. And I mean, you can be a good, you know, on-time bill payer and still not pay on time every time for 5 years. I mean, a lot of people now will automatically, will have an auto pay where it just automatically deducts, and sometimes we'll get somebody in here with it's had a real large bill for a few months, and we'll say, well, you didn't notice it? And the thing is that they've had it automatically deducted, so no, they didn't notice it, and that's why it's paid on time all the time nowadays. But for somebody to pay for 5 years and never be late, I mean, I don't think I've done that. I'd have to look and see, you know. Of course, I'm not a commercial enterprise, but that's pretty, you know, that's pretty diligent. I think it'd be worth rewarding those, and I think, to me, and I don't think anybody would use it as an incentive, but if it were an incentive for somebody to have them pay on time for 5 years, you know, I've got a couple little rental properties. I wish everybody would pay on time for 5 years for me. Man, I'd give them their deposit back, you know what I mean? So To me, it makes sense. I don't think it'll sink a hole in our budget. So I think referring it, seeing what other people do, and looking at the numbers, making sure we're not in any legal jeopardy on our bond issues and stuff would be the way to go.
Thank you, Ms. Benson.
And one of the things I think that staff recommended was automatic withdrawals being part of the requirement. So again, it's a protection. We can look at all of those things. And by the way, thank you for including the minutes from the previous discussions. That was very, very helpful in providing the materials for us.
Thank you. Ms. Schneier.
I just always thought that the policy for giving back deposits was once you move, like if you move out of state and you've paid on time all these years that you lived here and received the service, and you close out your account, then you get your deposit back? Is that how it works?
If you have a 24-month good pay history, that's been a residential customer.
Then you get it back. Okay.
If you, say for instance, with us 5 years, your first 24 months, good pay history, no credit infractions with us, we'll refund that to you.
What about businesses?
Businesses, they'll stay on the account until they either terminate or they may go into bankruptcy. There are many reasons.
But if they pay on time and they just close up shop for whatever reason,
It
then
will
they get
apply
their
towards
deposit
the
back?
final bill, and whatever is left, it is sent back to them in the form of a check.
Right, okay. And how much is like, say a restaurant, say McDonald's or something, whenever they put their deposit?
Most of them, 5/8 inch meter, you're looking at maybe $86. The most, probably with a McDonald's, can run on the upward sides of $250.
Yeah, that just doesn't seem like a lot to me, but for a
And
business
like I say, it
that,
all depends on the meter size.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Perkins.
No, nothing.
Nothing further? Thank you. Thank you very much,
All right.
Gabe. Thanks
Thank you.
for all of your and Patty's time on this item. We have a motion and a second. Do you want to tell your motion?
It's a motion to refer the issue to staff.
Thank you. Everybody got it? Please vote. Yes.
My motion was to refer to staff to come up with a policy that we would follow, and I think that was implicit.
Yeah.
Perhaps we ought to vote again with that.
Okay, so does everybody understand that it is a motion for staff, to refer to staff to set the policy when they voted? Okay. No. Let's re-vote on that.
Let me redo my motion,
Thank
if I
you.
might.
Thank you.
I move that we refer this issue to staff, that they develop a policy that looks at such issues as the impact on bonds, the impact on our bottom line, and come back to us with a recommendation for a policy for commercial refunds
Thank you.
after 60 months.
Thank you. Ms. Schneier.
I second.
Okay, everybody understands now. Please vote. And it passes 8-0. And again, thank you very much to staff for all of this information. We move now to new business. First is the 2018 annual report. Ms. Ritz, you're recognized.
Wanted to make a comment. I thought this was well done, great graphics, readable, understandable information. Just really good. I thought the diagrams and the pictures were very helpful in explaining the verbiage. And I was just really pleased to see, because I'm sure a lot of work went into making this report. And I wondered how many comments that have been given on it.
Mr. Sorrell?
Yeah, Natalie Bowers did that for us. She does it annually, and she spends a tremendous amount of time putting that together and putting the graphics together. And we've received quite a few positive comments already, particularly on the graphics. A lot of people don't look at the intricate data and so on that's included, but they'll look at the graphics more than anything else, and they'll somewhat skim read some of the information. But overall, it's been a very positive event for the ECUA this year.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Ritz. I agree. That's a nicely put together report. I had added the hosting of the LEAP group for 2020. Last year, Mr. Roberts went to the EOC and talked about recycle, compost, our facilities. And this year, we've been asked to host the LEAP group for the first half of the day. So last year we spent an hour. This year they want us for a whole half of a day. They're going to get an ECAT. The plan is for an ECAT truck to pick up the LEAP group, which is, does everyone know what the LEAP group is? So the LEAP group, and take them to the recycle center, and then drive them over to the compost facility, and then take them out to the central water reclamation facility. So, some comments were made that, and I wasn't on the board when this happened, so I'm not going to take any credit at all, that it was a really good thing this board did, moving that reclamation facility out of downtown, and the prime reason that our downtown has flourished so much, and they want to see it where the new one is. So I thought that was fantastic, and kudos to Mr. Roberts for doing such a good job that they wanted us back. Mr. Perkins, saw you pushing.
If we're done, it's something.
Open forum. We move now to open forum. Oh, do you see that? He had a little tag back there that said, "I agree." We move to. That's it.
Can I say
Yeah,
something briefly?
we have a
before we-
comment.
Yeah. You know, the area, not just here, but in a lot of areas, is starting to experience a real crisis with affordable housing or workforce housing. And a lot of people that are, that are lower level workers, can't afford, $1,200, $1,400 a month for rent. And I'm just wondering if there's any way that we can help, like with areas that have been targeted for urban infill or community redevelopment areas that are focused toward providing affordable housing, if there's anything that we can do on some of the fees that ECUA charges, whether it's impact fees or hookup fees or whatever. I recently wanted to add I've got a couple of place on Olive Road, I've got a couple of trailers on it, and they never stay vacant than more than a day. And so I wanted to add a couple, provide, affordable housing, and got all set to do it, and was writing my budget and analyzing everything. And the biggest, most burdensome item were the ECUA connections. I mean, they were $5,000 to $6,000, and after doing the math and everything, I figured, well, I'll just buy a sailboat instead. But I'm just wondering if there's a way that we can help with that, because this wasn't a community redevelopment area, and I wouldn't, I'm not planning on doing it for my own property or benefit, but I'm sure there are other investors out there who have property that they can add dwelling units to and would like to, but by the time you do the math on it, it's just cost prohibitive. So I don't know if there's anything we can do on that, but if we could just ask staff to look at it and see, maybe there is, maybe there's not, but if there is, it'd be nice to be able to provide that in those targeted urban infill and community redevelopment areas. Because if we don't help with something, or if other government entities don't do something on affordable housing, the homeless problem, we're going to be like California. I mean, we're going to have real homeless problems before long. So.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. Good foresight. Ms. Ritz?
Yes, Mr. Perkins, have you looked into other communities and what they did? You have not? Okay, so would that be something you as a board member would like to undertake?
Well, I really prefer that staff did it.
Okay. Well, you brought it up. I just wondered if there was something that really motivated you, if you would be the leader there.
Thank you, Ms. Ritz. Do I have any further comments? And if not, we are adjourned.